Name a mistake either you individually made or you think the company made as a whole, something it could have done better.
It's not the name Reveille. I'm still sticking with that.
Yeah.
Even though we knew no one would be able to spell it or pronounce it.
You did ask what was the toughest decision I've had to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be us having let go of Chad at the end of this meeting.
Two of you were just yelling at each other, and I don't remember who was.
I'm sure
I've got an idea.
I have an idea.
We can figure it out.
All right, get on with it. Welcome, everybody, to this latest episode of the Bugle Notes podcast. I am Michael Benicelli, managing partner here at Reveille Wealth Management, joined today by 5 of my esteemed colleagues, Chad, Jenny, Joe, Stephen, Nolan. So we are doing a special edition of today's podcast where we recently celebrated Reveille's 5th anniversary back in January. So we want to do a look back at the first 5 years of Reveille, just talk a little bit about our experience in starting a business, running a business. We know we have a number of business owner clients, and so we hope you find this material interesting and applicable to your own business. I was not part of the original Reveille team. I joined about a year after the company was founded. So my colleagues here are going to answer some questions that I have teed up for them, and we'll treat this as a bit of a roundtable discussion. So first question really out to everybody, and I'll let you guys pick who's going to go first. But so it's December 2020. We're still in the throes of COVID. And you guys are in the process of getting ready to start the company, which I guess you started officially on January 15th, or at least left your previous firm to start Reveille. So what was going through your minds in the last couple of weeks before you decided to up and do your own thing?
Yeah, I think we were thinking primarily about whether or not we had really taken care of our clients. And if there was any concern, any risk, as we saw it with transitioning, that risk would be related to, if we're doing what we need to do for our clients, then the risk is minimal. And it wasn't a quick decision. We had weeks and months of preparation. And I think the central theme of all that was, is there anything we've not done for any client? And if that was okay, then we felt like we were comfortable in making that transition.
I would say that for anybody, when you're making a change like that you're always knowing that we were in a good situation where we were before, and we were setting out on this endeavor knowing that we had a good business. We wanted to move to a place where we could run our business without any compromises, but you have to have some level of trepidation about making that change because you don't know how much of the success that you've had is based on your team, how much is based on the big firm that's standing behind you, or some combination of both. You'll never know until you actually decide to make that leap. And so we know that we had done a lot of preparation, as Joe had said, in terms of how we were going to go about this, and we had it planned down to the T in terms of how we were going to be making phone calls and what the process was going to be in terms of expediently trying to transition our client accounts over. But a couple weeks out, it's always just the nervousness associated with we're gonna do this, and we know it's getting close, but the one thing that you can't do in this situation is preface it with your clients. You can't preview it with them and say, hey, what would you think about this?
Yeah.
And so you're operating on a lot of faith at that point in time that it's the relationship that you have with them that's going to carry the day. And knowing that 2020 was a great year for us, and we really felt like that was the best time for us to move, because if clients were not going to move with us then, after what we had done for them in 2020, they were never going to.
Yeah. It's an important distinction, too. If you run a client service business or business that has clients and your intention is for them to move as you move your business, it's a very different thing than going out and starting your own enterprise from scratch and trying to find new clients. And so obviously that's your primary concern. So what was it like for you, Jenny, on the service side, knowing, the next several weeks were going to be a slog of trying to get everybody moved from one place to another?
Personally, I was excited. The guys were confident. We had a plan. We knew what we needed to do, what we needed to say, when we needed to say it. The approach was laid out. I was good. I was good to go. I was, following the leader, and I was confident in that.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a buzz and excitement about it, because we had talked about this for quite some time, and we had talked about the excitement of having our own firm and
exactly.
being, even though we had a good situation, as you said, where we were previously, we weren't 100% autonomous, and we knew we had a great thing. We had a great business, a great investment strategy, a great service model, and a great team, and we just needed to be kind of like, let loose and have that freedom to grow this to the level that we knew we could. And so the excitement of launching out to do that was like we all were on the same page. At the same time, there is a little bit of anxiety and trepidation about, okay, well, how successful, we were confident, you're right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like this is still a big move with risk, and we're depending on our clients to come with us. So,
But you're running on adrenaline, though.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, I think I lost like 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, just because, I wasn't eating,
Yep.
and it was an all hands on deck situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we had so many of these details ironed out. I mean, we had great counsel, but we had the roadmap of the advisors are going to make the phone calls, and this is what we knew that we were going to be able to say. Client was going to say this. It was a decision tree from there, and then ultimately, when they decided this is what I want to do, then now you're in the queue. You're going to talk to somebody on the service team. They're going to get your information. We're going to start to have accounts open and have everything moved. But it was a whirlwind. Even though I feel like we were as organized as you could be, it was a whirlwind and a flurry of activity, and we were all in there in terms of.
And we'd been out in COVID. I mean, we'd been remote,
Working from home, yeah.
working from home, and so then we went in the office all of a sudden.
Do you feel like, though, that what really created this idea that we could do this on our own was we were sent home during COVID. We're working in our own home offices, getting together on these Zoom calls every day, and had the best year that we'd ever had in terms of new accounts, new assets coming in. And so that's when we said, we could do this on our own because we're doing pretty well operating from our homes anyway. But do you think the 9-10 months that we had operating the way that we were just further enhanced our ability to execute when it was time?
Absolutely. But one of the things that we had going for us is that we weren't just new in the business, the industry. I mean, we all have vast backgrounds. I mean, many, many, many years. A lot of us together as well, even at other firms. And, knowing, and we've moved before. I mean, I guess technically all of us had made this move from another firm before. Mm-hmm. So then you take that, you couple it with the experience that we got during the course of the year 2020. We'd already been discussing this anyway, going back from the beginning of the firm, or beginning of our partnership back in 2017. Yeah. So we've been discussing this already. Change is tough in anything, right? But I don't think most of us lack self-confidence, and so I'm like you. It was exciting, not so much fear, because I think we knew what we had was a great story and a great. We knew we had a great team, and so from that standpoint,
more excitement than fear. I think certainly is the way it felt for all of us, and even the execution of the plan as we got through those several weeks post transition was exhausting, but with the adrenaline I think that we all had, where we're waking up, walking to the computer and working until you quit working at the computer and walk to the bed and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was that sort of period of time for several weeks where I don't think we did much other than that work. And it was kind of cool to do it all together. It was it was rewarding.
I think Steve was headed there with his comments a second ago, but what was that moment of realization when you knew that you could go and run your own company instead of having to work for somebody else? Or was it a moment, aha, light bulb type thing, or was it over time, gradually you got there?
I would say 2 or 3 months into COVID. I mean, so that came along late February, early March. I mean, I think a couple of months in.
It was during the summer.
Yeah.
But like you'd said, it wasn't a novel idea. It was something that we had talked about before, but all of a sudden when we're all cast out of the office and we're all sitting at home working independently, and our interaction with the firm at that point basically went to zero.
Right.
And so we started asking ourselves, well, we're having the best year that we've ever had, and we're technically, we're all working remotely, independently. What would it look like if we were actually doing this under our own shingle? Mm-hmm. And so that's when we started the process of evaluating, okay, if we were going to do this on our own, what would that look like? And so,
working for a large company like that is like having, a nice safety blanket, having, comfort that there's always this enterprise behind you. But when you go out to start your own thing, you don't necessarily have that. So how did you get comfortable with that aspect of it, or were you always comfortable? It's just a matter of time?
I mean, I think that the marketing, the brand behind having a big firm feels meaningful when new in the business, because I think your credibility is earned, and that takes some time. So when you're meeting with a prospective client and you got nothing to that you could consider credibility, if you have a big firm's name on your business card, maybe you feel that helps. After a few years in the business, that fades, and you have relationships with clients that are meaningful and confidence in what we were doing, and therefore I think that the idea of having a big firm behind you becomes somewhere close to meaningless.
I still think you have to have resources, though, right? And so that was and we interviewed 8 different custodians, through this process. And one of the things that we were adamant about was that wherever we were going to go, and we wanted to be able to go to a place where we could do this on our own, have more autonomy over the brand. We want to own what we're doing, that type of thing. But we did not want to compromise in any way, shape, or form our ability to provide solutions to clients. And so if anybody that we talked to, if they lacked the ability for us to execute something that we would do for an existing client where we were, then that was kind of a do not pass go. But what we found, and what I think we already kind of knew, is that a lot of these firms are set up very similarly, and they have the tools, the arrows that you can put in your quiver. And so whether it's an investment management thing, financial planning, if it's banking, lending, insurance, capital markets, trust and estate, whatever it is, that we were going to have access to those things, so we would continue to be able to serve our clients the way that we were previously.
I think also in terms of having confidence in ourselves to, separate from the larger firm and all of the benefits that we we're accustomed to in terms of working for a larger firm. I mean, even though that was true structurally, the previous large firm we were W-2 employees of, we worked for our clients, and we had been operating our team had been operating in a very similar fashion as we do now in terms of as a business, in operating our business, governing ourselves, putting in place our own systems and processes, and serving clients together. And so at the end of the day, obviously we're working for our clients, but still there's a little bit of stuff that you're accustomed to with having the support of the large firm. I think what helped us with that, with having the confidence that we could do this, is each of our different backgrounds, I think, was a part of it. Nolan had been a part of a couple different firms that also had his own firm years ago. I had my own firm previously, prior to the large structure that we were a part of. And I had a real comfort level with doing this on our own based on that experience. Joe had some experience running some businesses, and Stephen, had been through transitions, et cetera, as well. So I think we collectively had great confidence in ourselves, our abilities to set up the kind of firm structure that we needed to support what we were doing for clients, and then just launch out. And again, the decision process to go with who we've gone with, to partner with Raymond James the way we have, has been great, because we have kind of the best of all worlds. We're autonomous and we operate independently, but we have the support of a great firm to help us with serving clients.
So I'd say, just to put a bow on that, I think that we operated with an ownership mindset before we even left the big firm, that we already had that sense of owning the practice that we had and the way that we operated it. We just didn't own it at the time. But then the other, I don't want to jump ahead of other questions that you have, but once you get out and you're doing it on your own, and some of the things that you may take for granted from the big firms are things like systems, payroll, benefits, all those sorts of things that are very important for yourself, for your staff. And so being able to find a way to take care of that in a somewhat turnkey manner was also really important, so we could hit the ground running and just focus on rebuilding our client relationships over here.
Yeah, you seem to be reading my mind here in terms of the questions I'm going to go to next, so I'm going to change it a little bit. And everybody at this table is an owner in this company. And so tell me a little bit about the shift in mindset from working for someone to working for yourself or a company that you own.
Personally, I feel responsible for what the clients and prospects think of us. I feel responsible for the team and how they react and how they present, what we are doing on social, what we're doing out in the public. And if I don't approve of it, I think I need to speak up, and I think I own it's my responsibility to put my 2 cents in.
That's a great point. The reputation of
Exactly.
a firm you work for, when you're working for a large company, that's out of your control. But when it's a handful of people that you're starting a
Right,
company
exactly.
with, it's yours and yours alone to screw up.
Right.
So,
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Thoughts?
And hopefully everyone has that same attitude.
Yeah. I was going to say that's refreshing being here, because I feel like even the folks that don't necessarily own a piece of the company yet, maybe, come in with that attitude, and that's tough to find. So something they always tell you in really large companies, you need to think like an owner, right? Difficult to do sometimes. So what's the hardest thing about running your own business? And what's the hardest decision you've had to make up until this point, if you can point to one?
Well, I will say this, as someone who, again, as I mentioned a second ago, I ran my own firm, but I was a solo practitioner with, one other person working with me. And the reason why that was great, but it led to where we landed before, and all of us meeting there. What I was hoping for in that decision process way back then was to be a part of a larger team. And what's awesome is that's what's developed over the last multiple years, not just 5 years of Reveille Wealth Management as we know it today, but several years prior when we were the Reveille Group. at the previous firm. And what I mean by that is, if you're trying to run your own business and you're wearing all the hats, that's really, really hard. But when you're collectively working the way we do together as a partnership, and you all have different roles and you can lean on each other, and everyone brings different strengths to the table, and we're working together as a team to build all the different facets of the business, it's much greater, right? And so, I think it's neat that we as owners can collectively come together to build this vision that we have, but we also can all kind of run in our own different lanes to make that all happen more efficiently. It's kind of neat to be a part of building that.
It does, though, become, it's a 24/7, 365 responsibility.
Sure.
That previously, you had your responsibility to your clients, obviously, but the markets were closed, at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, right? It didn't open until 9:30 on Monday. I feel like we have other things going on constantly, at night, after hours, weekends, what have you. So it's a 24/7, and that responsibility is huge. You did ask what was the toughest decision I've had to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be us having let go of Chad at the end of this meeting. Just joking.
Forthcoming decision.
Just
Hey, yeah, we're that season is upon me.
We make decisions together. I agree. Love that.
Touché.
So let's, really dig into it. And what is something that you think you screwed up pretty badly, whether it was in the process of starting the company or somewhere along the line in the past couple of years? Name a mistake either you individually made or you think the company made as a whole, something it could have done better.
It's not the name Reveille. I'm still sticking with that.
Yeah.
Even though we knew no one would be able to spell it or pronounce it.
We're going to lean into the fact that nobody can pronounce it correctly the first
But we
time.
ought to actually do that as an exercise right now. What do you mean by that? Just emphasize for everybody in the
Well, I
audience.
just take it off the client or the caller. I just go ahead and say it. Go ahead and spell it. I've been spelling Simbrock forever, right? So I'm used to having to spell. So why give them that awkward moment? Why, why do that?
Revelry.
Why put them through that?
My
Just go
last
ahead and
name's
say it.
Bennett Shelley. How do you think I feel?
Yeah, exactly.
That is something that I do whenever I introduce our firm. I say our name and I say it is pronounced Reveille, just so you know, because
Yeah,
people get
exactly.
it wrong.
Yeah,
But
go ahead
anyway.
and put it out there.
Yeah, but I don't remember any big clunker decisions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we've made any really bad decisions. I'm
sure we
you
have,
small
but
decisions.
I would
that
say
you make.
hiring some too quickly.
I-
Maybe.
Well,
I was going to say
we could have waited a little bit. Yeah,
yeah.
we were trying to fill chairs.
as an owner in this business, probably one of the most difficult things is just making the wrong hire in one particular case.
Yeah.
So, it's and that would be my advice to really anybody who has got their own business, that the people that you have in your business are infinitely more important than any of the individual things that you do. You've got to hire the right people first. And when you've got a small business, one person is a much bigger percentage of what goes on in that business. And so you've got to consider the fact that anybody you're bringing in could have a really adverse impact on your business. So, that's the one thing I've got in the back of my mind always.
I'm going to put a positive spin on that, though, and say that just the same as we all have kids, right? Same as you raise your kids, they're going to make mistakes over the course, and it's a learning experience. And so hopefully, you have to make those mistakes in order to grow.
But I will say this: we identified that mistake pretty early, and they always hear people say, you want to be slow to hire, fast to fire type thing. That's the only person that we've ever invited to come into the firm that we asked to leave as well. And because this is a small firm, we want it to have a family feel, and everybody's a part of what we're doing around here, and we're going to have to trust each person to execute on what their role and responsibility is. But that one is where, when you know And there are some times where you have some legalities that get in the way that say, hey, you better do it this way to extricate yourself from that mistake that you made. But you do have to trust your gut with those types of things. And so,
and that's a tough thing to do. When, it's one thing to say it to somebody, trust what your gut's telling you, but, trusting that you've got a bad feeling about something or your original idea might have been wrong or whatever it is, and that is extremely difficult. It's a learned behavior, to Nolan's point, right? It's something you got to screw up to get right later on. So that's a good segue into, everybody likes to talk about their company culture. It's a great corporate buzzword in a lot of ways, but that's one thing I think that struck me joining a small company, having worked for large companies my entire life, that it means a lot more at this level what your company culture is, and it goes back to the mistake we just talked about. So how do you view Reveille's culture? How do you describe it to other people? And tell me a little bit about why it's important from your perspective.
So I grew up with a really awesome family, and my grandparents especially kind of set the stage for this early on, but they were very hardworking, but they also really had a good time. So they lived by the motto, work hard, play hard. And they played as, like family, friend gatherings and all that kind of stuff. And I say that because I think we have that. We collectively have a great group of people who are hardworking, but we also have fun together. And I think it's important for us to do that in different ways, whether it's, just socially or out when we're, doing things as a company or with clients or whatever. So I think that's one, work hard, play hard. I believe that. The other thing, and I was telling somebody about this recently, we were talking about our partnership and how unique it is, because it is unique to have a partnership that functions well and is healthy. And what I described about that is two things. We, I think, have been thus far successful as a firm and in our partnership as the partners originally and as we've grown, because we have transparency and trust. And we trust each other to do the right thing, make good decisions. We trust each other ethically. We trust that we're each working hard in our own capacities and we're doing what we need to for clients and for each other. So I think those are two important components to what we have going on here.
Yeah, I would agree. And I remember my mom gave me something when I was little that I still have on my dresser at home that says, a good name is better than great wealth. And I think everybody who's here also has kind of that inherently this desire to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity and the values of this firm, and that we're here to serve our clients, and that we're not going to cut any corners. We're going to do our job the right way. And I think that flows through to the customer experience, and that because we're authentic with people, I think that's one of the things that people value the most about who we are as a firm, is that I think they expect us to be smart in terms of the decisions that we're trying to help them make financially, reasoned. We say it all the time, we're experienced, credentialed professionals. There are experienced, credentialed professionals everywhere. But the authenticity that we have, I think, is something that you really can't put a price on. And I think that's what people value the most about who we are as a firm. And some of that comes down to the fact that we are willing to have fun, but from a culture standpoint, inside of the walls of the buildings, of the offices that we have, and the offices that we will continue to have, is that people should enjoy showing up there on a regular basis to go to work. And it isn't something that they dread because they're showing up because they know that they're going to have great interactions with their clients, they're going to have great interactions with their coworkers.
Feel that they're contributing. And with culture, you actually have to put some time and effort and thought into building a culture if you just let it happen naturally, you can have some good parts and you can have some parts that can get you in trouble. And, things like Jenny working on client experience.
Standard
That's
of
a
care,
huge standard.
having standards.
Hugely important for developing the culture that we want, because it's got to always be focused on our clients. And then sometimes it's just luck more than skill. I mean, I think as a starting point, the four of us, very different personalities, start working together and realize that we also have complementary skills, and we have an ability to get really mad at each other and then resolve that and move on. And things like that can't be underestimated as you start a business, in that that could have gone the other direction, and turned out from working together over a long enough period of time, we realized that there's something kind of special here. I mean, these are guys who are all starting from the same place in terms of direction. Chad said, morally, ethically, that certainly can't be underestimated. But the fact that we've worked together as long as we have, and have only grown closer, and never, I tell people close to me, I've never had a moment of thought of, I don't think one of them is doing the right, I don't think he's working hard enough, I don't know if he's doing what I would do. There's never a moment of that, because of the transparency Stephen just mentioned. It's not only from us to our clients, but it's between each other. I think that's an important part of our culture.
I remember thinking about that after one of the first partner meetings that I attended. The two of you were just yelling at each other, and I don't remember who was.
I'm sure.
I've got
I'm
an
sure.
idea.
Combination.
I have an
We
idea.
can figure it out.
Yeah.
But I remember walking out of there thinking to myself, God, they're willing to do that to each other, then and they're willing to hear the truth, however terrible it might be. Then they've got a good thing going here.
I think of the culture as like a family. It's like we've all come together, and people from the outside have come in, and I think we, kind of develop that brother fighting kind of a,
Yeah.
mentality. Duke it out and then hug it out.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't see much else other than just a family, a work family.
Yeah.
Not a mom and pop shop, just
Yeah.
a work family that works.
yeah, well said. And,
Yep.
I think a piece of advice I would offer to really any small business owner, if they get to the point where they're beyond a handful of employees, we sat down as a partner group and codified our core values early on and said that we had a very long discussion. These are the things that we believe, right? We all believe them collectively. We want the people in this firm to operate by this set of values, and we wrote it down. We put it on our website, and it's out there for everybody to see. So if we're not true to those things, it's out there for the public, and somebody can call you out on that pretty quickly. So I'd highly recommend anybody that's a small business owner, go through that exercise.
Yeah.
So if you guys could step back to maybe before you started this, or even along the way, what piece of advice would you give yourself to do something differently, maybe do it a little earlier?
Whoever's watching this may understand our business a little, they may not, but there's different channels, so to speak. We work for, as we call it, a wirehouse, bigger firm, bigger name, W-2 employee. Then we're now on the independent side where we own our own business. I think almost to a person, we're going to the national conference next week for the independent channel of Raymond James, and you will hear it said, 1,000 times, is that, man, I wish I'd have done this earlier. I wish I'd have done this earlier. It's tough to do, right? Because it's that whole saying about you don't know what you don't know. COVID brought us to this. I mean, we kind of knew what we wanted to do. COVID kind of gave us the impetus to make it happen. But now that we have, I mean, what would we have done? We'd have done this, 5 years earlier, or what, or how long it was.
Well, I'll say this: I don't think everybody will, who would want to opt to be independent, they're not gonna do it with the same vision that we did, right? Because there are a lot of people, and we have conversations with advisors all the time. The economics will always bear out that you're going to be better off in an independent channel over time. And but there are a lot of people who just want to go and set up their shingle to be an advisor. And so I think you asked the question earlier about, what are the biggest change from what we used to be doing to what we're doing now. That and Nolan kind of alluded to it, that when we were advisors, I mean, we are still advisors, but that used to be our sole responsibility. And now, just because the market closes, now you've got a lot of other things that you're doing that are related to your business that may not necessarily be related to being on the phone with one of your clients or in a meeting with one of your clients. Now you're talking about your brand and marketing and payroll and all these other things.
To the point where one of the first hires you made was somebody who has no clients.
That's correct. That would be you. And I'll say this, that was, and again, it happened pretty quickly, but we had big visions and bold visions for what this brand could become, and what we still desire to form it into. But we knew that we had gotten to a point where somebody had to run the business, because we all still have clients that we're responsible for, and we're still bringing clients to the firm. And so somebody's got to be focused on the business of running the business. And none of us had the capacity to do that, certainly not to be able to grow this the way that we wanted to. And so the brilliance of having you come in was you already had a decade and a half worth of experience in our industry, and so you didn't have to be taught it. You came in and you knew exactly what you were supposed to do, and your slate is as full as anybody else's here, and you're not on the phone with any clients. All right, because running this business and running this brand is beyond a full-time job in and of itself.
So, yeah, maybe you have this as a question. I'm not sure, but
Why don't you just ask it, Chad?
yeah, I'll just throw it out there. So you already asked the question. What's one of the biggest mistakes we made? And we've made mistakes along the way, but to the point that was made earlier, we've made a series of small ones. Fortunately, we haven't made any big ones. But on the opposite side of that, the biggest, I think, kind of the best decision that we have made was first leaving the previous situation and starting the firm, okay, and bringing the team with us. We're fortunate that Jenny came along and the other folks came along as well. But then, second to that was to Stephen's point, realizing we needed somebody to come in here and help us run this thing, and the fact that it led to you was pretty darn good. I'm super pleased with that.
You guys are welcome.
But yes, Stephen was the catalyst for that. I got to give credit where credit's due.
But the other thing that I'll say in terms of the growth that we experienced, because we came over, right? We had some shared office space for a little while, and then we built out this location that we're in right now, and it's beautiful, and we build it out, and we think to ourselves, we've got so much room to expand inside of this space that we're going to be good here for 10 years. And within 2 years, we're out of room.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I didn't necessarily see that we would grow
Sure.
as quickly as we did. We're fortunate that the company who was behind us isn't occupying that space anymore, so we're able to blast through that wall and now have the entire space that we do here. But so we've been very fortunate and very blessed in the fact that our business has grown and developed maybe even faster than we had hoped.
So, all of the things that you guys just brought up are you making the decision early on to make investments in this business that you just started, right? So, tell me about some of the early investing that you did, why it made sense to do it at the time, Would you have done more? Would you have done less? Are there other things you should have invested in and didn't invest in? Give me an idea of what that was like during that process.
Yeah, the overview was our broad idea was to create a platform from which to grow. So that essentially meant instead of paying ourselves more money, we were going to invest in the infrastructure.
I was about to say, this involves taking money out of your pocket.
Yeah, it's the people.
That's correct.
Putting more
That's
people
correct.
around you.
That's finding the best people and not worrying about the financial part of the investment.
And that's rare. I mean, particularly, take it from my perspective, I know a lot of financial advisors, and I don't know too many of them that would take money out of their pocket to invest in their business to the level that I think you guys did in particular. And
Sure. Not easy to do. And I think we all do that with a leap of faith, but with a great deal of confidence in that we're, in many cases, investing in people that we knew for over a number of years. And then eventually, some that we had maybe a bigger leap of faith because we had not known them for as long. But in virtually every case, the investments have been good ones.
Well, it speaks that what we decided to do was to really invest in and pour into this bigger vision that we all had, that we could build this from a practice, having our structure was we were all practitioners and we had a practice, to we have something special that we want to scale at a national level. But that we couldn't do it individually as practitioners, and we needed the infrastructure, the people, to help us do that. And it's neat that it's come to fruition as quickly as it has. And what's funny is, we all talk to so many different people in the industry nationwide, and while we have a very healthy, good-sized business, we still are a small firm. But yet, to have the kind of infrastructure that we have, to have a dedicated COO running the business. People hear that and they're like, "Wow, you have a COO?" But so I think we've made those investments to set this foundation for what can be scaled now and be more efficient in doing that.
Well, I think that's all it comes down to you're investing in your client experience, right? What do we want people to feel and sense when they're a client here? And we've talked about how this idea that if there's this impression that you're leaving on clients every time that they're coming in contact with you, that when you're servicing them, whether you're servicing them once a month, once a quarter, twice a year, that they all walk away with this same impression that they're wowed by. And knowing that we only have so much time, each of us, to be able to maintain those relationships and the other duties that we have to the firm. And so we have to have other people come alongside us to make sure that our clients of the firm are getting that experience and they're feeling that impression with the frequency that we want them to have it. Because ultimately, and we said in another meeting earlier today, this is a service business. And we have deliverables to clients. We have things that we need to help them achieve. But this is a service that we provide. They value the advice that we're going to give to them. Hopefully they value the process by which we're going to do that. But ultimately, I think what they value the most, even our highest net worth clients, what they value the most is that they know that they can pick up the phone and they can get somebody on the other side of it who's going to be able to help them. I'm not going to have to track somebody down, that they pay for accessibility, they pay for service, and they want to know that when they're on the other end of the phone, that we're excited to take their call, and it's their first experience with us that day. It may be at the very end of the day, and we might be tired, but we still have to be on brand.
So I'm sure we have thousands of advisors that are going to be listening into this, and so you've got a number of advisors that have thought about the idea of going independent, starting their own firm, taking the same leap that you all did. So what advice would you have for them? And what myths or misconceptions do you think you can bust for them about what it's like on the other side of the fence?
I thought of an analogy for this one.
Oh, love it.
Once my knee hurt, and
Loving it less right now. No, I'm just-
and I like to run and jump, and I did everything possible to not have knee surgery, because that's what you do. You postpone it because there's risk associated with it, and so you get injections and you do therapies and anything that you can find to try to delay the surgery. And then I get the surgery, and I realized I had made a mistake by waiting so long, because the technologies had developed to a point where it was hardly even a bump in the road. And so, I have knee surgery, and 6 weeks later, I win a tennis tournament. It was almost as if I had not even taken any time off. And since then, I've had, I think, 11 friends have the same surgery with the same surgeon, and they all say the same thing, that if anyone asks them about their knee surgery, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I waited too long. Should have done it sooner.
Yeah, so
That
if
was my
any
mistake.
financial advisor is listening in, moving firms is surgery. That's what I got from you.
Well, it is a process, right? And but I'll say this: I think that every advisor, they will find themselves asking the same questions that we did when we were contemplating this. And first of all, you want to make sure that you're on a platform that's going to allow you to run your business without any compromises. But I remember having a manager one time who told me that if you are not anxious about a transition, then your transition probably isn't going to go well. If you have somebody who thinks, I'm going to move and every single one of my clients is going to follow me, that the people who operate with that hubris are the ones whose transitions are the worst. But people who go into it with some anxiousness and they're concerned about how much of my success is predicated on me versus the firm that I'm with, and those are the transitions that are very effective. And so, you got to stay humble. Don't have this hubris about yourself, but understand that if you've been putting off a move towards independence, you're only hurting yourself over time as a result of doing that. But make sure that your relationships with your clients are the things that you're most focused on.
Add to Joe's analogy, okay? Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, right? So old saying. And then second, if you have a successful business now, you will have a successful business if you go independent. Mm-hmm. It's about you still got to do the work. You still got to put the work in. But I don't know of any examples where somebody had a really successful business as at a big firm.
Yeah, stories of bad
And
transitions.
then decide, but if they had a bad transition, that's different. But if they had a successful business at one place and they made the move and they did the work, they have a successful business here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or
And
not here, but
what I was going to say,
society, yeah.
stories of bad transitions are few and far between.
Oh, well.
As I've seen businesses that I don't know that I would call them great businesses, and do a transition, and I'm judgingly saying, I don't really like the way they're doing it. I don't think they're working very hard at this transition. And it still goes fine. They still get all their clients to move eventually. So it's it doesn't love the fact that at 90 days post-transition, we had moved 100% of our assets. That was one of my top milestones.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. Fantastic. My point is, you don't have to do it like we did it. It can still be successful. You just don't hear of otherwise.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, let's wrap this up with a question around what's next for Reveille. It's been 5 years, so what do we see in the next 5 years for Reveille as a company?
Well, we want to continue to block and tackle and do what we do for clients every day, right? Serving clients is at the highest of our focal points, day in, day out. That said, we have been fortunate to be able to spread the word about Reveille, right? Our name means it's a new day in wealth management, and so we want to, raise the awareness about what we do and how we do it and how it is so unique in our industry. And the way we do that is through just every day doing what we do for clients, and clients spreading the words themselves about how well they're being served by Reveille, and just growing that way just organically. But also spreading the word. We've been having lots of opportunities over the last several years since we launched to have conversations with other advisors around the country who find the appeal of going independent interesting and attractive, but also specifically what we're doing and how we're doing it somewhat attractive to them as well. And so I think over the next 5 years, we're going to be continuing to grow in that regard across the country. And we now have 3 other offices, and I would envision that we'd have many other offices around the country and grow inorganically or just through expansion that way around the country, and just keep having fun while we're doing it.
Yeah, I would say that if we continue to adhere and exercise the core values of who we are as a firm, we're going to continue to be successful in both of those categories, because clients are going to continue to value the experience that we provide them. They're going to value our authenticity, and we're going to continue to have more referrals from clients. We're going to be introduced to more prospective clients through the CPAs and attorneys that we work with, and so that component of our business is going to continue to grow. And I think that more advisors, as they see the success that we've had, and they say, I want my business to stand out in a similar way, and what Reveille is doing is effective, and I appreciate what they're doing, how they're trying to be smart about making these decisions for clients, and I want to be a part of what they're doing. I don't want to look like everybody else, and I value the culture that they have, and maybe I don't want to be a cog in a large machine anymore. I want to be part of something that's growing, and that where they're, again, excited to come to work. I think for a lot of them, the business has gotten to be stale, and so there can be a little bit of a renaissance for them coming and being a part of what we're doing. So I think if we continue just to be true to who we are, that we're going to continue to grow in terms of new relationships that we're going to onboard, but new advisors that say, I want to be a part of that.
And then geographically, that translates into locally, regionally, and nationally. Mm-hmm. We will have a national footprint when all is said and done, over the next 5 years.
We like to say to each other, we're really only limited by how many people are out there telling our stories. So just need to find more people to tell it. So
that's right.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this latest episode of the Bugle Notes podcast. We hope you found this informative. As always, feel free to reach out to us at info@reveillewealth.com if you have any questions. But otherwise, we will see you next time.